Discover the incredible power of consistency and discipline. 5 life-changing speeches revealed. In the heart of the bustling Midwestern town, the annual community fair was more than just bright lights and laughter. It was a beacon of hope, a tapestry woven with dreams and resilience. Sarah, a single mother of 2, stood amidst the colorful stalls, the sweet scent of funnel cakes wafting through the air. She felt a fleeting sense of joy as her children squealed with excitement, their faces painted like superheroes. But deep down, anxiety gnawed at her, a reminder of the mountain of bills piling on the kitchen table and the uncertainty of her future. Once proud of her years at the local factory, Sarah now wrestled with the aftermath of being laid off. With every job application that went unanswered, her hope began to wane. She picked up extra shifts at the diner, took on odd jobs, and spent her nights in classes that felt like clouds beyond her reach. Every time she glanced at her children, their innocent smiles cut through her like sharp glass, igniting a fierce indignation within her. How could anyone see her as just another welfare case? As the community fair continued, the laughter around her faded to whispers of judgment. Look at her, can't even keep a job. Sarah could feel the sting of their comments in her heart, but she refused to let despair swallow her whole. Amidst the joy of funnel cake and carnival games, her spirit flickered, reminding her of her dreams beyond survival. The festival was a reminder that even in struggle there was still connection, still community. But just as the fair reached its peak, disaster struck. A local veteran, beloved and respected, suffered a devastating accident that shattered their picturesque image. The news swept through the crowd like wildfire and the laughter turned to hushed gasps. This tragedy laid bare the cracks in their community. The stitches that bound them together now seemed frayed. Sensing a moment where her voice might matter, Sarah found herself standing in front of town members during an impromptu meeting. Nervous but fueled by a hope she thought extinguished, she spoke with a passion she didn't know she possessed. We are not just cases. We are families trying to rise above. We need to come together if we want to overcome these challenges. Her heartfelt words echoed through the room, resonating deeply in some but also reawakening tensions in others. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As her speech concluded, hope flickered in the eyes of some residents. But deep down, Sarah felt the weight of unresolved issues tightening around her chest. Would they truly change, or would the prejudice persist? The tension in the air was palpable, wavering between realization and resistant comfort. For Sarah, the stakes had never felt higher. Every heart in the room held its breath, waiting for a signal, a change, a sign that they could truly embody the very ideals they cherished. Would they rise together to confront their biases, or would the walls built by judgment remain immovable? For Sarah, and for everyone in that room, the answer hung in the balance, leaving a question that lingered: could they redefine what it meant to be a community? The silence in the room was thick, like a heavy fog settling over a lonely street. Sarah stood there, her heart racing, feeling every eye upon her. The faces around the room displayed a mix of disbelief, curiosity, and, for some, defensiveness. She wondered if her words had struck a chord or sparked a fire. The man in the corner, known for his sharp tongue and unyielding opinions, folded his arms tightly as if bracing himself against any change. Change doesn't come easy, Sarah thought, her mind spinning with doubt. What if they didn't want to hear her? Just as she felt the urge to step back into the shadows, an unexpected voice broke through the tension. She's right. A woman near the front stood up, her face flushed but resolute. We've been ignoring the real struggles around us for too long. If we don't help each other, who will? A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd, some nodding in agreement while others shifted uneasily in their seats. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe this was the moment they would lean into their humanity rather than retreat into their prejudice. "We can start a community fund," the woman continued, her voice gaining strength. "Help families facing tough times. It doesn't have to be big donations, even little bits add up." The murmurs turned into discussion. Some began sharing ideas, while others committed to volunteering their time. Sarah felt the warmth of excitement wash over her. Could they really be on the verge of creating something great together? But then, as if a dark cloud passed over the gathering, a man yelled, "And who's going to make sure they don't just spend it on beer and cigarettes?" His words hung heavily, stifling the budding optimism. The supportive murmurs faded, replaced by whispers of doubt and skepticism. Sarah's heart sank again. She didn't want this to fall apart. Not now. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, driven by the urgency to protect the spark of hope now burning in some of the hearts around her. "I know some people see it that way," she said gently but firmly, "but we can't move forward if we're judging each other without lending a hand first. We need a plan, we need communication, and we need trust. If we don't give it a chance, we'll never know what we might accomplish together." Behind her, she could see her children bouncing on their feet, sensing their mother's rising passion. They believed in her, and perhaps, just perhaps, the town could believe in a better future too. A long pause stretched across the room. Sarah could feel the weight of anticipation, pushing against her shoulders. Would they take a leap of faith with her? Finally, the woman from earlier spoke again, her voice shaking but clear. "Let us start small. A community dinner next week. We can eat, talk, and share what we want for our lives and our families." The room erupted in chatter, a mix of excitement and trepidation. Sarah looked around, her heart swelling. They were talking, and that was a start. As she caught a glance of her children and realized they were watching the community come together, a fierce determination washed over her. She wanted them to know that change was possible, that even in adversity, there was strength in unity. But just as the light began to pierce through the dark clouds, a loud crash echoed from one of the carnival games outside. All heads turned as they heard the commotion. Someone shouted, "The tent has collapsed." Sarah felt her heart drop. This moment of connection was suddenly overshadowed by chaos. Would this moment of hope they had started to build shatter? Would fear return with a vengeance, or could they turn back toward solidarity once more? How could they face this new challenge together? Everyone's hearts raced in different directions, but one question lingered: would this accident deepen their divide, or would it forge an unbreakable bond among them? The sound of the crashing tent echoed loudly in Sarah's ears, pulling her from the whirlwind of excitement and hope. Panic rippled through the crowd, faces turning pale and voices rising in anxious chatter. It felt like a wave, crashing down hard and fast, washing away the unity they had just started to build. "Everyone, please." Sarah raised her voice above the chaos, desperation threading through her words. "Let us focus. We're in this together." As she spoke, she noticed a few familiar faces looking towards her, searching for reassurance. They were scared, but they were also hungry for connection. She wanted to be that anchor for them, to show that even when the ground felt shaky beneath their feet, they could still stand firm if they leaned on each other. "Let us see what we can do to help." Another voice joined in, this time a man with a wide stance and an even wider heart. His head bobbed in agreement, and people seemed to draw strength from his energy. Slowly, he stepped forward. "I have a group that can assist with the cleanup. We can start right away." At that moment, something shifted in Sarah. Hope was far from extinguished, it flickered in the rising determination of her community. Encouraged, she pressed on. "That's the spirit. Let us organize ourselves and get moving. We can figure this out together." Her words began to take root. More people were stepping forward, ready to act rather than react. They moved out into the chaos, hands reaching out to help one another, shouting directions to keep everyone safe. The shift was palpable, like a thunderstorm easing into a sunny day. Her children jumped off their seats, eyes filled with awe as they watched the adults transform uncertainty into action. With each passing minute, the crowd turned from fearful whispers to determined shouts. They were setting up barriers to guide people away from danger, securing whatever had been left scattered on the ground. Every small act of kindness rippled through the crowd. Someone gave a comforting hug to a woman who looked lost, while another man shared his phone to call for help. Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This was what community looked like, not the chaos that overshadowed their gathering, but the rising together that followed. Just then, as a little girl tugged at Sarah's skirt, pointing towards the collapsing tent, a realization washed over her. "We have to rebuild this," she said softly, but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "We can work together, not just to fix the tent, but to build trust. We need to keep talking, keep sharing. The dinner is just the beginning." The atmosphere shifted again. They weren't just cleaning, they were working towards something bigger, a road towards healing. Ideas flowed again, now interspersed with practical plans for the future. But in the midst of renewed enthusiasm, Sarah's eyes caught a glimpse of the man from the corner. He stood still, his arms still folded, a scowl forming on his face as he seemed to think deeply about what he was witnessing. What was he thinking? Was he starting to shift, or would he remain entrenched in his skepticism? With her heart racing, Sarah knew they had a mountain to climb. Could they extend the bonds they were forming beyond just this crisis? Could she ever truly reach those caught in the throes of their fears? And just like that, the true challenge lay ahead. Would they emerge stronger, or would the weight of doubt and division overshadow their progress once again? The laughter and chatter began to rise again, an undeniable pulse of energy that surged through the once panicked crowd. Sarah took a deep breath, a tight knot of anxiety loosening in her chest. She watched her neighbors join forces, pulling frayed ends of the fallen tent together, binding the community with threads of perseverance. Above the sounds of movement, the hum of gratitude and camaraderie elevated her spirits. "Let us set a goal," she called out, her voice breaking through the noise. "We'll have this tent back up by nightfall. Who's with me?" A chorus of voices cheered in response, igniting a fierce spark of enthusiasm. Hands moved faster, each person finding their role in the reconstruction. It was beautiful to see, all of them working toward a shared purpose, weaving their hopes into the fabric of the tent. But her eyes were still drawn to that man in the corner. He hadn't budged. Was he immune to the enthusiasm surrounding them? Sarah's heart ached at the thought that perhaps not everyone could find comfort in this moment of unity. She swallowed hard, feeling uncertainty drip into her resolve. Every fiber of her being wanted to reach out, to show him that there was a light even in shrouded doubt. "Can we get a ladder over here?" Someone shouted, pulling her from her thoughts. "Right," she said, pointing. "Over there by the food truck." Sarah felt the exhilarating rush of the moment. It was tangible energy flowing between people who were no longer strangers. Even the children joined in, giggling as they filled buckets with water to weight down the corners of the tent. She saw in their eyes the purity of their hope, the innocence that believed everything would be okay if they just worked together. "Mom, look!" Her youngest called out, face smeared with dirt yet shining with determination. "We're fixing it. We're making it better." "Yes, sweetheart. Just like life," she replied, smiling through the tears that threatened to spill from her eyes. But just as the sentiment settled in her heart, she sensed hesitation in the crowd. It came from the direction of the skeptical man. He remained an island of doubt in an ocean of optimism. Sarah noticed him shifting, his arms finally dropping to his side as though weighed by thoughts he couldn't voice. She felt a pull deep within her, one that urged her to approach him. No one else seemed to notice the hesitation, the unspoken weight he carried. As she walked over, her mind raced. How could she even start? What could she say that would break through the barrier of skepticism? "Hey," Sarah said softly, standing a few feet away. "I'm glad you're here. He looked at her, his expression shifting from guarded to curious. I know this must seem like it's all just noise, she continued. But see how hard everyone is trying. You're a part of this too, whether you want to be or not. His brow furrowed, but he didn't look away. Why do you think this will help? He countered, skepticism lacing his voice, but behind it, she saw a flicker of something else yearning. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her own convictions pressing against her heart. Because it's about more than the tent. It's about reaching out to one another, it's about hope. A heavy silence settled between them, charged with uncertainty. Would he let her in, or would the walls he built remain solid and unyielded? And then, just like that, Sarah realized she wasn't just fighting for this moment. She was fighting for every moment in the future, every connection waiting to be made. But was he ready to step into the light? She watched him closely, both of them suspended in that moment of choice, the world around them buzzing with every possibility of what could come next. He swallowed, the knot in his throat tightening as uncertainty clung to him like a shadow. Sarah could see the muscles in his jaw twitch, the internal battle raging on behind his eyes. She held her breath, urging him silently to break the silence that had draped over them like a heavy blanket. Hope, he finally said, the word tasting foreign as it slipped past his lips. That's a nice idea, but it feels so fragile. Her heart raced. Was this her chance? It is fragile, she agreed. Like a flame that needs tending. It might flicker in the winds of doubt, but if we keep feeding it, it can light the way. He took a step closer, and the movement surprised her. You're really convinced it can do that? Absolutely. Sarah's voice was steady now. The surrounding chaos faded into a dull murmur as they focused on each other. Look at everyone working together. They're pouring their hearts into this, believing that they can make a difference. That's what hope does, it connects us. His brow furrowed deeper, but the flicker of longing she noticed before sparked brighter, shifting the atmosphere between them. People are relying on you too, she said softly, taking a small step closer. You don't have to carry this alone. Let them in. His eyes darted toward the group, then back to her. I don't know if I can, he confessed, vulnerability slipping through the cracks in his facade. Just take one step, she replied gently. Just one. You don't have to fix everything today. Just join them. She held his gaze, feeling the energy of that moment amplifying within her. This was more than a simple conversation, it was a chance for connection, a possibility of healing not just for him but for everyone, herself included. For a heartbeat, he seemed to contemplate her offer. Then, as if the walls around him had started to tremble, he exhaled slowly. Okay, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I'll try. Before Sarah could respond, a cheer erupted from the crowd. The tent was being raised again, the structure being pulled back into place by the collective will of the community. She felt her heart swell with that raw energy, a mixture of hope and relief washing over her. Look! She exclaimed, pointing toward the rising frame. See? Together, we're making it happen. He turned to the laughter and shouts of joy, his lips curling into a tentative smile. There it was, the flicker of connection, the shadow of doubt shifting ever so slightly. Maybe together, we can make it better, he said, his voice stronger now. Yes. She said, feeling her spirit soar. That's it. Their shared moment of understanding invigorated her, but as she turned back to join the group, she noticed that a few people had stopped working, eyes scanning the horizon. The sudden shift in energy caught her attention, pulling her focus back to the man. What's wrong? She asked, sensing something amiss. He followed her gaze, his brows knitting together again. I don't know, something feels off. A chill rolled through the crowd, laughter dying down as an unexpected anxiety took its place. The air felt different, charged with something foreboding. Shadows stretched longer across the field as the sun began to dip behind the distant hills. Before Sarah could process, a distant rumble vibrated through the ground, a low growl that sent a ripple of fear weaving through the vibrant energy of the gathering. She turned back to the man, and just as their eyes met, a sense of urgency gripped her heart. "What do we do now?" he asked, his earlier bravery replaced by uncertainty. And as the first raindrop fell, heavy and cold against her cheek, Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. Above all else, they had just found hope within connection, but would it be enough to weather the storm that was fast approaching? The air shifted abruptly, whispering secrets that sent knots through Sarah's stomach. She felt as if the ground beneath her feet trembled in sync with the rising dread in her heart. The sun vanished behind thick, ominous clouds, casting the gathering into shadow. Faces around her turned pale under the sudden gloom, concern tightening their features. "Everyone." Sarah's voice rose above the murmurs. "Let us regroup." She felt an instinctive pull to rally them, to fortify that fragile hope before it dissolved like mist. With the man beside her, she moved through the crowd. Each step felt heavier as the thunder rumbled closer, the sound wrapping its fingers around her like an icy grip. She could sense a collective uncertainty, eyes widened, breathing quickened. He matched her pace, glancing around at the anxious faces. What if it's worse than we think? He looked back at her, and in that moment, Sarah saw the echo of doubt that she'd once feared. "We'll face it together," she reassured him, feeling the strength of her words sink into the atmosphere. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it. One step at a time." The firmness in her voice seemed to ignite a spark of solidarity among those nearby. "Gather round." She called again, motioning for everyone to come closer. "We need to stick together. Focus on what we can control." She turned and met the man's gaze again, grounding herself in his presence. "You're not alone in this. You've taken that first step, and now we all have to take the next one." The crowd began to draw in tighter, forming a circle against the impending chaos. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the uncertainty on their faces slowly blend into determination. People began reaching for one another, forming connections, their own flickers of hope igniting. As thunder cracked again, a flash of lightning illuminated the field, revealing a tapestry of concern mixed with resolve. In those moments, Sarah felt the weight of their shared vulnerability. Yet within that darkness, she also sensed the profound bond weaving them together. "Remember," she urged, her voice steady, "hope is our light. We can face whatever comes. Let us build our foundation right now." The man nodded, emboldened by her words as he clasped his hands together with those on either side. Then, the rain came. It pounded against them, soaking through clothes, drenching spirits. But oddly, it felt cleansing. It was as if the skies themselves understood the weight they carried and sought to wash it away. "Embrace it," Sarah shouted over the storm. "Feel how alive we are. We're still standing, together." With each drop, laughter broke through the fear, and voices rose in defiance of nature's fury. They joined hands, forming a chain of strength, a collective heartbeat against the pounding rain. The man beside her laughed, a sound of pure wonder amidst the chaos, and Sarah felt her spirit lift. As they danced in the rain, joy emerged from the depths of uncertainty. They were alive, together, through it all. But, just as she began to feel a sense of triumph, another rumble echoed in the distance, deeper, more menacing. "What else is coming?" the man asked, his earlier bravery flickering once more. Sarah's heart sank slightly, yet she caught his gaze, determination igniting within her. "Let us not find out alone. What are we up against now?" She held on to his look, understanding that the true test lay ahead not just for them, but for everyone. The storm was just a curtain hiding even greater challenges. And with that thought hanging heavy in the air, the winds shifted again, carrying a new sound, something strange and unearthly. What lay ahead might shake their newfound connection. But perhaps what they were becoming together would be enough to face whatever storm was brewing. The air crackled as lightning split the sky, illuminating the faces of those huddled together. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, each thud echoing the rising dread in her gut. The strange sound, a low hum that seemed to resonate from deep within the earth, sent shivers through the gathered crowd. "What is that?" someone whispered, their voice trembling as it broke the delicate bubble of laughter that had filled the space moments before. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her heart racing with a mix of concern and curiosity. "But we need to stay together. Whatever it is, we'll face it as one." She squeezed the man's hand, grounding herself in the connection they had forged in the chaos. Around them, uncertainty began to shift again, worry etched into the faces now silenced by the strange noise. The rain, once a symbol of unity, now felt like an unwelcome companion, adding weight to the moment. Sarah could feel their collective anxiety. They were holding on tightly, but for how long? Then, the sound changed. It became sharper, like the screeching of metal against metal. A distant rumble grew louder, overlapping with the thunder above. "What is happening?" A woman nearby clutched her child to her chest, eyes wide and fearful. And just as quickly, the hum evolved into a symphony of chaos. Hail began to pelt the ground, tiny ice bullets that bounced and splattered, a harsh contrast to the rhythm of the rain. People recoiled instinctively, fear creeping back into their minds. "Listen up!" Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "We're going to stay calm. We're in this together." Each word felt like a lifeline. The man beside her nodded, his expression resolute. The ground beneath their feet vibrated, and a rumble echoed, growing in intensity. Sarah couldn't help but notice the sky darkening, the storm morphing into something far more dreadful than she had perceived before. The crowd shifted, unease palpable. "We need a plan." A man yelled, his voice trembling. "What do we do if it gets worse?" "Focus on what we can control." Sarah cried out. "We can help each other. Let us find shelter if we need to." The urgency in her voice compelled a few people to break from the circle, scanning their surroundings for anything that might provide cover. That noise, the man next to her spoke softly, almost to himself. "It feels like it has a purpose. Like it's alive." Sarah turned to him, sensing the shift in energy. "Alive?" she repeated thoughtfully. In that moment, the idea planted itself firmly in her mind. What if the storm was more than an obstacle? What if it was a harbinger of change? Her gaze drifted back to the crowd. "Listen," she called again, "maybe this storm is trying to show us something. Let us not be afraid. Let us see how we can turn this into an opportunity for growth. If we can stand strong now, we can face anything together." Another crack of lightning illuminated the sky, but this time, it felt different to Sarah. This was not just a storm, it was a test. A test of their resolve. As the crowd began to murmur among themselves, Sarah noticed a flicker of hope in some of their eyes, including the man beside her. Perhaps this storm was pushing them beyond their limits for a reason. Just then, she caught sight of something tumbling through the air, a small, seemingly harmless object flying towards them. The crowd gasped in unison, stepping back. Silence fell over the people, their eyes wide with disbelief. "What is that?" someone shouted, pointing to the uncertain shape tumbling closer. Sarah understood, without knowing why, that this moment would change everything they thought they knew. What lay ahead would test their bonds in ways they could never have imagined. What's coming next? She wondered, a knot of apprehension twisting in her stomach as the object neared. Would they be ready for what awaited them? As the object soared closer, it became clearer. A ball, bright and colorful, was careening towards the group. It bounced once on the mud before rolling to a stop at Sarah's feet. The tension in the crowd shifted. Laughter crept back in, a desperate attempt to reclaim normalcy in the face of chaos. "Is that a beach ball?" a young man exclaimed, his voice bewildered. The absurdity of it hit Sarah like a wave. How could something so trivial carry through this storm? She picked it up, feeling its smooth surface, the weight of it almost grounding her. For a moment, the looming storm faded, replaced by the ridiculousness of a ball in a downpour. "What's it doing here?" someone else wondered aloud, eyes darting from the ball to the storm above. But Sarah saw it differently. Holding the ball, she felt a spark of connection to the community, to the moment. "Maybe it's a sign," Sarah declared, looking in the faces of those around her. "If we can play, if we can let go for even a second, we can face whatever comes next." A few smiles broke out in the crowd. One brave soul took a step forward and kicked the ball. It soared into the air, a bright dot against the darkened sky. Laughter erupted. Others joined in, kicking it back and forth, using what little energy remained to push through the dread that clung to them. As the ball moved from hand to hand, Sarah felt the pulse of connection strengthen. It became a shared experience, an unintentional reminder of their humanity amidst the storm's rage. The storm wasn't just something they faced, it was a canvas upon which they painted their unity. "Who's next?" someone shouted, and hands shot up in the air like children eager to play. Even as hail continued to fall, their laughter cut through the chaotic noise above. Sarah could see those around her engaging, forgetting, if only for a brief moment, what lurked in the storm. They were no longer individuals but a collective force, embracing something greater than fear. But then, in a twist of fate, something in the air changed again. The low hum that had originally struck fear into their hearts grew louder, vibrating through the ground as if announcing an arrival. The ball paused in mid-air, suspended by the energy surrounding them. The laughter fell quiet. "What's happening?" a woman whispered, panic creeping into her voice. Sarah felt the warmth drain from her. The storm had seemingly paused too, holding its breath as the object, now just ahead, shifted and morphed. What was previously an innocent plaything transformed, shapes twisted, colors warped, and there it was, a strange crystalline structure emerging where the ball once lay. I don't understand," she stammered, eyes fixed on the unnatural thing. "What is this?" The crowd edged closer, captivated but terrified. It became clear that the true test had only just begun. The storm was just the beginning, a deeper mystery lurked in the heart of it all. As the unknown entity pulsed with energy, Sarah's heart pounded, awareness dawning on her. This was not just a random event, it was a calling. "Are we ready to find out what it means?" she asked, unable to lift her gaze from the glimmering crystal. And in that moment, she felt the weight of their collective spirit. Would they embrace the uncertainty or retreat back into fear? The question hung heavy, waiting for an answer. The silence stretched, wrapping around them like a thick fog. Fear danced in their eyes, but Sarah sensed a flicker of resolve igniting beneath the surface. How easy it would be to retreat, to let their instincts pull them away from the unknown. But they had just tasted laughter. They had connected, if only for a moment, and she couldn't let that slip away. "We can't turn our backs on this," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cracked the stillness like lightning. "If we're brave enough to face the storm, we owe it to ourselves to understand what this is." Around her, uncertain glances began to shift. People nodded, slowly at first. A young girl stepped forward, her small hand reaching out toward the crystalline structure, drawn in like a moth to a flame. The shimmering surface reflected her wide eyes, illuminating a sense of wonder that broke through the lingering dread. "Sarah's right," a man with sandy hair shouted, surprising himself alongside the group. "We've been through the worst. What's a little mystery?" That spark emboldened others. One by one, they stepped forward, arms outstretched toward the crystal. Sarah felt the energy pulse through the ground again, beckoning them, as if the strange object sensed their willingness to embrace it. "I can feel something," she said, trembling as she closed the distance. "It's warm." The little girl's fingertips brushed the surface. A soft glow emanated, and the tension that had once held them captive began to unravel, revealing threads of hope woven into their fear. "What do you see?" someone asked the girl, eyes wide with anticipation. "I see colors," she murmured, lost in its beauty. "Like a rainbow, but different. Pink and purple and, something I can't describe. A ripple of excitement surged through the crowd. They leaned closer as the crystal pulsed rhythmically, casting beams of light that danced in their eyes. Sarah joined the girl, placing her hand beside hers. The moment she did, a wave of warmth washed over her, filling the cracks of anxiety left by the storm. This, she realized, isn't just about fear. It's about possibility, too. What do we do? Someone called, the exhilaration growing palpable in the air. Together, Sarah replied firmly, her heart racing. We simply reach out and take it. They formed a circle, hands clasped tightly, reminding each other of their shared strength. With a collective breath, they pressed forward. The crystal responded, sending a pulse of light splashing outwards, casting their silhouettes against the darkened sky. Instinctively, Sarah knew this was the choice to embrace their existence, their fears, and their wonder. The storm gathered strength, but somehow, it felt distant now. They were anchored, solid as the ground beneath them. And as they stood, unyielding, the light surged again, and the storm began to shift. What if this illumination held answers? What if the chaos, the fear, the beauty merged into a new possibility? Will we find out what is beyond this light? Sarah asked, her voice full of yearning. The crowd exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing among them. As the crystal pulsed brighter, the air felt electric, and beyond it, something began to form within the storm, swirling shapes that twisted and turned as if alive. What lay on the other side? Hope. Freedom. Or a new challenge. In that moment, dreams hardened by despair sparkled with newfound urgency. Their hearts raced, and the unknown drew them like a magnet, promising revelations waiting to be uncovered. Are you ready? Sarah asked, feeling the intensity of the moment. They took a collective step, breath held in unity, ready to discover what awaited beyond the storm. The crowd held its breath, their hearts syncopated as they stepped closer to the glowing crystal. Sarah felt the warmth envelop her fingers, mingling with the surge of energy flowing through the crowd. In that instant, every fear, every doubt, became mere whispers fighting against the thunder of possibility. Together, they formed a unified force, hands tightly clasped around their dreams and aspirations. She glanced at the faces around her. Hope, determination, and even the flicker of excitement shone bright in their eyes. This was their moment. This was their choice. Let us step into the light together. Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the lingering storm noise. With one forceful step, they leaped as one, and as they crossed the threshold of glowing energy, the world exploded with color. A rush of warmth and brilliance washed over them, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though weightlessness defined their existence. The storm faded away, its ominous roar melting into a harmonious melody. Clouds transformed, swirling into brilliant hues of pink, orange, and lavender, painting the sky like a masterpiece. As they landed in a vibrant expanse that felt both surreal and real, Sarah took a moment to absorb the beauty around her. It was a sanctuary. Grassy hills rolled like waves, and flowers bloomed with colors she didn't know existed. The air smelled sweet, filled with fragrances of jasmine and fresh rain. The crowd erupted into delighted laughter and shouts of awe, their fears ebbing away like the last remnants of the storm behind them. The man who once stood in skepticism beamed, the tension in his face melting away. This is amazing! He shouted, as children raced about, marveling at the wonders around them. Look at this! Another woman pointed, her voice filled with wonder. It's breathtaking! Do you see that? Sarah's son tugged at her hand, eyes wide with excitement, pointing toward a shimmering waterfall cascading down the hill, each droplet sparkling like little diamonds in the sunlight. The world around them vibrated with life. Sarah's heart soared. This wasn't just an escape, it was a rebirth. Together, they had traversed the storm and emerged into something beautiful, a realization dawning on her. This was a representation of their journey, a representation of overcoming fear through unity. As Sarah stood in the midst of that glorious landscape, she knew this moment would ripple into their future. They had transformed from individuals trapped in fear to a community bound by hope, forged in both struggle and triumph. "Look!" she called out, glancing at her neighbors. "This is what we created together. We faced the storm and found our way to this beautiful place. We can do anything if we stick together." Cheers erupted again, a celebration of their resilience. They reveled in their shared victory, taking in the beauty of what came from facing their doubts head-on. The laughter echoed through the hills, mixed with the sound of cascading water, resonating like a symphony of hope. As dusk approached, the landscape began to morph yet again. Shadows stretched across the ground, but now, they weren't daunting, they felt like a warm embrace. Sarah turned to the man who had once been skeptical and smiled. "Look how far we've come. Together. With every step, we built something incredible," he replied, eyes shining. The light began to twinkle like stars around them, a reminder that each individual in that space carried a light within, a spark waiting to be ignited. The collective glow radiated warmth, promising that together, they could face whatever storms life would throw their way in the future. "Remember this moment," Sarah yelled, a resolute spirit surging through the air. "No storm can ever dim our light again." And they echoed the sentiment, affirming their unity while embracing each other's narrative. They were not just survivors of a storm, they were the architects of a new beginning. As they looked toward the horizon, a shimmering path unfolded before them, leading to more adventures, challenges, and joys waiting to be uncovered together. They took a collective breath, feeling empowered by their shared experience, ready to move forward into whatever came next. From this day on, they would hold tightly to the truth they had learned: in community, there is strength, with hope, there is light. The connection they had forged in the storm became their greatest treasure, and they would carry it with them always. Now it's time for you to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and transform you. Leave a like right now to feed this algorithm and spread the message of hope and unity. Comment below your feelings about this ending, we want to hear how it resonated with you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Your support means everything, and only true fans understand the importance of making our community grow.